It's the Melbourne Caravan Camping Leisurefest for the latest and greatest of everything.
Let's get going. Start here, go anywhere.
My name is Jason Berrell, and I'm pretty lucky in that I actually get to talk about all of our amazing product with our amazing dealer network. And the topic that we've chosen today, and as you heard Linda talk about a little bit earlier, caravan weights, towing weights, gross combined mass, all of these terms are really hot topics in the industry at the moment. Now, I represent a vehicle manufacturer. Linda obviously works for an industry association, so it made sense that we came together to help the education piece. Now, I'm going to make some general points here, and that is that today is actually provided as general advice only. And that's particularly important because obviously there are lots of different variables that can obviously be different people's circumstances. So at all times we recommend that regardless of what brand you buy or are currently driving, that you refer to the vehicle manufacturer's website or the owner's manual for full details. That's my caveat, okay? I can't know every tech spec of every model in our range, let alone competitor ranges. So how this topic came about was we had on our website for our dealers, we had a payload calculator, which was a link to a third-party site where people could key in information during a customer sales conversation and it would actually spit out the information the team member needed to help provide to the customer. The problem with that was that there was a myriad of tech information that needed to go into that spreadsheet in order to ensure the information being provided was correct. So we took that link down because we couldn't maintain internally all the tech specs that happen. Sometimes with a minor model update, there can be changes of 10, 20 kilos to a spec. So we decided that it's a bit like the teach a person to fish versus give them a fish. So we decided to tackle this topic with our dealer network, and we're probably one of the first OEMs to go out and do that. So we engaged with a third party, and it took about 6 months of a lot of work, and an e-learning specialist company have just helped us launch this to our dealer network literally a week ago. And so we thought that we would repurpose a lot of that information and share it with customers as an education piece. So as it says there on the screen, it's really important that everyone understands payload and towing capacity to ensure that they're operating the vehicle within its legal and technical specifications. And we're going to get to a lot of this a little bit later. Now, this is an introduction to payload and towing. I know that many of you, some of you in the audience, may be more versed in this than myself. My role here today is to actually introduce the topic as a very general conversation, to really help start a conversation that you can then follow up with your trailer manufacturer, with your vehicle manufacturer if you're looking to buy, or even just go away and do some extra research on your current situation. So overloading your vehicle in terms of either your payload or your towing capacity can have some fairly serious ramifications. I'm pretty sure none of this is new to any of you. It puts your safety and that of other road users at risk. That's number one. Number two is it may, in many cases, void warranty and insurance. Now, I also read Caravan World magazine, Camper Trailer magazine. I've had 9 caravans in my last 20 years of towing. I know that a lot of people go, oh, but Jason, if there's an accident, they're not going to go around and weigh all the items that happen in the accident. They have, and they do. And I really strongly suggest that people do educate themselves with a very, very serious legal ramification case that happened not that recently around an overloaded caravan. Increased possibility of damage to chassis and other components. Now that's just not on the tow vehicle, that's also on the trailer. Now I use the word trailer very loosely. Caravan, boat, trailer, camper trailer, I just use the word trailer. It's just much easier. Of course, it also negatively impacts vehicle performance, handling and braking. There's a lot of science and engineering that goes into a vehicle and into a trailer, And if you overload any of the technical specifications, you're actually starting to not let the vehicle or the trailer perform as best as it can. And of course, last on the screen there, you can see that there's a likelihood of damage to towing equipment, whether that be weight distribution hitches, articulating hitches, tow bars, tow balls, drop-on hitches, the list goes on. So, what is payload and towing capacity? Well, I'm glad you asked. So payload capacity is purely summarised on the screen there, as you can see, as the maximum load the vehicle can carry as specified by the manufacturer. In this case, Mitsubishi, who I represent. This figure can be calculated by deducting the vehicle's curb mass from the vehicle's gross vehicle mass. And don't worry about the acronyms, because in a few slides I'm going to unpack that for you in a lot more detail. This figure must include all passengers, accessories fitted, get my tongue out of my mouth, luggage and anything else. That's really important. A lot of people completely underestimate the weight of the people that are in the tow vehicle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 passengers or more, and the accessories that they may fit at the time of purchase or post-purchase. The roof racks that you add, the extra tyres that you upgrade to, the snorkel, the winch, all the things that you carry. It's really important that you take a more granular look at all of that information to ensure that you're completely within your technical allocation. Now, towing capacity is the upper limit that the vehicle can tow without breaching safety, mechanical or legal limits. Now, this is a very hot topic, as I'm sure many of you know, around this braked tow capacity 3.5 tonnes, 3,500 kilograms. That is the technical capability, but it's got so many factors that roll into that. And we're going to take a bit of a look at that today to help you understand. But that's the definition of towing capacity. When viewing the tow capacity specifications of a vehicle, the manufacturer, in this case us, Mitsubishi, will provide you with a BTC figure, braked tow capacity. Sometimes the industry just uses shortened versions of these terms, tow capacity, but that is braked tow capacity. And of course you then have unbraked tow capacity. And a lot of people always wonder when they read an article why it always says, as many of you know, 750 kilos unbraked tow capacity. That's a legal thing. So familiarise yourself with BTC and UTC because that is the technical definitions of brake tow capacity and unbraked tow capacity. I'll change sides so you get to see these lovely photos and a lot of this great text. Where to find weights and capacity specifications. Now in this case, this is actually our website. You simply go to the website, click on the top of the page, and many websites work the same. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but there will be a spec sheet that you'll be able to download specific to the vehicle that you either are driving now or are looking at buying. And the PDF will normally scroll down to some sections around weights and towing. Of course, you've also got the owner's manual. I think we're all guilty of this. We buy something, we use something at home, and we never look at the owner's manual, do we? We go straight to a Facebook group or we go to Dr. Google. That's fine. You know, I'm guilty of that myself, but there is a really great resource in every vehicle, and that is called the owner's manual. And our engineers go to lots of trouble to keep that up to date, as all manufacturers do. So please, if you've never looked at your vehicle's owner's manual, if I can ask one thing that you do when you leave this session today, go and have a look at it. Familiarise yourself with where it is because there's some really important information in there. So, vehicle tow bar. You'll also find sometimes model dependent and depending on the towing equipment that's fitted, but there's a lot of times information inside the door on a placard, or also there, as you can see in the bottom right, on that's I think a Mitsubishi Pajero Sport, maybe a Triton. There's information on the towing equipment. Again, all of this information is legally required to be on the vehicle at time of sale. And if you don't mind, I will take questions at the end, so we'll keep rocking through because there's a good chance that your question may be covered within this presentation. Did you know Now, I think many of you probably already know this, but a really great way for you to actually get to understand weights and measures is at a weighbridge. And they provide a lot of the information that you actually need. We recommend a certified weighbridge. So I went down Great Ocean Road on the weekend just gone, down to Kennett River. I came back up from Geelong and there's a BP servo on my left that I know you can call into and you can weigh. I had a look at it. It's about $20, $25. I've got a motorhome, so I've now left the caravan community and gone motorhoming, but I go up the Hume, up to the Harquhar River, up in the high country, and there's a really cool freeway bridge on the Hume Highway when you get just north of the Flowerdale turnoff. So there's actually lots of ways that you can get access to a weighbridge. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend money. So key terms to know. So we're now going to start unpacking, hopefully, some of the terms that you've already heard of, or some of these may actually be new to you. So there they all are there. And we're going to now take a look at them in a little bit more detail. So tar mass. Now this is a term that exists but probably doesn't get referenced a lot because as you can see there, it actually requires only 10 litres of fuel to be in the vehicle. My investigation with a lot of our technical team is that this term sort of started when vehicles were being shipped to and from and being loaded on and off trailers and on and off boats, and so there was a negligible amount of fuel put in the vehicle at time of manufacture. So that's where the sort of tar mass comes from. I've got some really cool diagrams here that hopefully get you to understand it in a visual way, and a lot of you are visual learners, which I know I am myself, so hopefully these diagrams certainly help. Now, curb mass is certainly the more common term that you'll hear. And this is obviously similar to tar mass, but it's actually with a full tank of fuel. And 9 times out of 10, I'm hoping, when you leave a dealership, should you buy a new vehicle, you'll find that it'll have a full tank of fuel in it. So that's pretty much what it weighs off the showroom floor or off the lot. As per original spec. It won't be that weight if you then option for nudge bars and bull bars and winches and all sorts of different things that aren't put on the vehicle on the manufacturing assembly line. Gross vehicle mass. This is where we're starting to get into some of the exciting stuff. So this is the maximum total mass of a fully loaded motor vehicle as specified by the manufacturer. This figure can be typically found on the vehicle's weight placard inside the door. As it says there, the GVM is the maximum vehicle weight inclusive of everything. So that's what I call the box and ice. That's literally about to drive down the road on your trip with you in it. A lot of people forget that. Passengers are included. Payload, another very hot topic in the industry at the moment. Just because your vehicle can have a payload of X numbers of kilograms doesn't mean that it can do that when you start hooking on trailers and caravans. But payload is the maximum load the vehicle can carry as specified again by the manufacturer. This can be calculated by deducting the vehicle's curb mass from the gross vehicle mass. That's basically what have I got left to play with. This figure includes all passengers, luggage, accessories, etc. And where a lot of people get caught out, remember what happens when you connect a trailer to a car? You transfer that tow ball weight to the vehicle, and that then needs to be included in the payload. So that catches a lot of people out. Maximum axle mass, this is obviously talking about the weight that can be on the axles as specified again by the manufacturer. And you'll normally find that when you look at the combined axle weights, they usually exceed the maximum weight that the vehicle can weigh. The manufacturers build a little bit of extra in there as a safety margin. I know with when Linda talks a little bit later, this topic may or may not come up, but certainly on trailers, single axle, dual axle, it's really important that people understand also how axle mass is really important when you're towing something. Additional. Now, this is a term that we use, but additional literally is everything else. I mentioned before that a lot of people get caught out by the weight of passengers, and as a general industry standard, you know, I certainly am pushing that 100 kilos since COVID, I can assure you, but generally work on these sorts of weights. You're going to have a little bit more and a little bit less, but if you're kind of wondering, how do I factor in 5 passengers when I'm calculating weights, then this is a good guideline. Now, this is not going to be every single person. We get that, but it's certainly a guide. Tow ball mass. This term can have different ways of being expressed. Tow ball mass, tow ball weight, downforce mass. Hey, Mitsubishi even confused the subject a little bit more. In our owner's manual, we call it trailer nose mass. But again, it's the weight that's actually placed onto the tow ball, as it says there, in the nominated position, configuration as advised by those accessories. So I'm not going to get into this in great detail, but obviously, hopefully you might understand that when people start flipping hitches or lifting them up or lifting them down, you're starting to change the engineering capabilities of that equipment and also potentially the vehicle. So we talk about the nominated position, which with a 50mm tow ball is fairly standard because it usually goes into a receiver and that's where it stays and the height's pretty much set. That, of course, can vary. So calculating payload capacity. So there's a little bit of a diagram for you that helps you understand, what do I need to know? So your gross vehicle mass, which you obviously can get from the manufacturer's website or in the owner's manual. The curb mass, obviously that's the manufacturer's set number. You can get both that first and second number pretty easily. This is where you need to start doing some work. Additional, what's everything else weigh? And it can be as detailed as having to get all the items out of your car that you normally carry on a holiday or a trip and weighing them. It can be that detailed. Because in some cases, you can have very small margins that you need to actually think about in terms of being at the possible payload capacity limit of your vehicle. Obviously, tow ball mass, you know, I'm a big advocate for people purchasing some tow ball scales, some good quality tow ball scales that they can actually install or use themselves as a general guide for the tow ball mass exerted by their trailer. If you want to know that number specifically with a certified weighbridge, then obviously certainly go and do that. But I know it's not always practical to hook your van up or trailer and take it to a weighbridge to get a ballpark for that number. So there are some options that you've got there. And that last number you have, of course, is payload. What have I got left over? And that number starts to become really interesting sometimes when you kind of look at it, if there's anything else that you may want to carry or down the track that you may look at carrying. So obviously that configuration changes with one less square if you're not towing, because you're not having to worry about your tow ball mass. So towing capacity differs from payload capacity because towing capacity refers to the maximum weight that a vehicle can pull behind it safely. It's an essential factor to consider when purchasing a vehicle, especially if you plan to tow heavy loads. Now, Linda and my role here today is education, and that's really all I'm here for. I don't mind what brand you buy, what brand you're looking to buy, but if I can walk away from these 4 sessions I'm delivering knowing that one single person is going to go home and do things safer and more responsibly, I'm going to be a very happy man. So I know that there's a lot of examples where people reverse engineer. They fall in love with a trailer, a caravan, a camper trailer, and then they look at their tow vehicle and go, she'll be right, mate. That's what's catching a lot of people out. Ideally, I would like to think that you don't put the cart before the horse, that you look at your tow vehicle first, and then you look at your trailer. However, I spend a lot of time camping. I know that many times someone's trailer, caravan, boat is actually sometimes worth more than their tow vehicle. I get that. And I know we all haven't got 100K sitting in our pocket to go and drop on a new tow vehicle. But ideally, we should be making sure that our tow vehicle is capable. When it comes to towing, it's essential to ensure that the towed weight does not exceed the vehicle's towing capacity, or as I mentioned before, braked tow capacity. Exceeding the tow capacity can strain many of the vehicle's components, engine, transmission, leading to potential damage and also potentially an accident. It's important to consider both vehicle payload and towing capacity when choosing a vehicle for your towing needs. And this is another thing to consider too. Often people buy their tow vehicle thinking, I'm not going to tow. 2, 3, 4 years down the track, something changes. You fall in love with the lifestyle. You suddenly want to go and experience the great mobility that camping and caravanning brings. But you've got to then please ensure that you come back and look at the capability of that tow vehicle. Unbrake tow capacity is how heavy a load can be and the maximum the vehicle can tow if the towed load, the trailer, does not have its own independent brakes. Now, I'm not here today talking about mechanical override brakes or disc brakes or electric drum brakes. That's a whole other conversation. Today's just an introduction. But that figure, all times, is 750 kilos. So you'll always see that figure quoted in pretty much every OEM specifications, unbrake tow capacity, 750 kilos. And we know that there can be examples where people may or may not do the right thing. Because a lot of times the certification process is different in different states, but hopefully we'd like to think that if a trailer weighs over 750 kilos, that someone somewhere, whoever made it, has actually put some kind of brakes on that. So brake tow capacity relies on the towed load, the trailer, having its own brakes so that the combination is not solely reliant on the towed vehicle's brakes to slow or stop. You can imagine you're driving a 3,000 kilo tow vehicle, you suddenly hook on a 2,500 kilo trailer, you're asking those brakes that were designed for that 3,000 kilo tow vehicle to suddenly now pull up 5.5 tonnes. It's just not going to cut it. All right, so it's really important that the trailer obviously has its own independent brakes, whatever type that might be. The towing capacity of a vehicle will usually be specified, as I said before, as BTC, brake tow capacity, and this is the maximum the vehicle can tow if the towed load has its own brakes. So understanding tow capacity basics. So towing capacity is calculated by a number of important weight limits. This is a really great slide. Gross vehicle mass. The vehicle manufacturer determines that because obviously we make the vehicle. Vehicle brake tow capacity, that's us. We know the vehicle. Gross combined mass, another really important topic point there. We know that. We don't know that. That's where you need to work with the trailer manufacturer, the person you're looking at buying from. If it's second hand, you've got to know what that gross trailer mass number is in order to ensure that, particularly that point number 3, that you're within the gross combined mass. Because a lot of the time, when you look at what the vehicle can tow and then the weight of that trailer, and you come back and look at it through the lens of gross combined mass is the underlying fundamental. That's the most important thing. And I don't want to get into things like GVM and GCM upgrades. It's a whole other topic. This is really about just understanding some of the basics. As I said there, red indicates set by the trailer manufacturer, black's us, or OEM. Gross combined mass can often be less, this is what I was just saying, than a vehicle's gross vehicle mass and brake towing capacity added together. So gross combined mass is the number one figure, in my opinion, that people need to be aware of and consider. It's the maximum weight of the loaded tow vehicle and loaded trailer hitched in big red letters there. It is illegal to exceed the vehicle's stated GCM rating. Okay, really quick look at the towing capacity calculation there. You can start to see a lot of these numbers are repeating themselves. So once you get an understanding of these fundamental elements, you really should be able to start looking at this topic with confidence. I know that it's a topic that scares a lot of people and it confuses a lot of people. It doesn't need to. You just need to sit and slowly work through these figures. And where possible, if you don't know these figures, seek assistance in order to obtain them. Key points to remember. The available gross trailer mass is the maximum weight of the loaded trailer being towed. That's the maximum that trailer can weigh. Gross trailer mass must not exceed the vehicle's brake tow capacity. So I'm going to wrap up now with some considerations when towing. So, you know, a lot of people probably already know this. I don't want to state the obvious, but I think it's a really good opportunity for us just to revisit this. So making sure that we distribute the weight evenly when loading the trailer. Ensure the load is not too heavy on one side, as this can cause the trailer to become unstable, particularly when turning or braking. And gel sealed lead acid batteries are a really big part of this, because we all know they start weighing a lot. I've just dropped 2 brand new batteries in my motorhome to replace a 150 amp battery that was in it. And I haven't gone lithium yet. That's a whole other conversation. But I had to be very mindful of the fact that I was actually putting another 30 kilos into that compartment. So I've actually countered that by carrying some water to that same weight in the back of the motorhome. Because I've got to obviously practice what I preach, right? It's really important that we're making sure the vehicle is balanced. And a motorhome, at the end of the day, is still a vehicle. Using the right equipment. So this is really important, that using a hitch that's appropriate for your vehicle and your trailer. And the hitch supplied with your tow bar is normally what we recommend. It's a whole other topic that I could spend hours talking about with you, as I'm sure many of you already know. Adjust your driving. I think we've all been there. We see these people tearing past us at crazy speeds, towing trailers or boats or caravans. It's obviously not responsible. Adjust your driving to accommodate the extra weight and slower response time of the trailer. Avoid sudden movements or sharp turns and maintain a safe, comfortable distance. I know since I've been towing, I have so much more respect for truck drivers, because I'm starting to understand things like the slower response times and longer brake distance required when towing. Use your mirrors. I made this point there, use appropriate and legal mirrors. This is a really hot topic with me personally. The amount of people I see that are just not driving trailers with the appropriate mirrors that are either not just illegal but just unsafe. You've got to be able to see behind you and what's going on around you, and check those mirrors frequently. Tow ball mass, general industry standard and general sort of common sense is making sure that your tow ball mass, the weight that trailer's putting on your tow ball, generally is within about 10% of your brake tow capacity. In saying that, though, we're talking about 3.5 tonnes of brake tow capacity, 350 kilos on the tow ball is a shed load of weight. So I'd probably like to think that there is some other things being done there to ensure that massive amount of tow ball mass is not unsettling the vehicle. Again, quick recap. This information was provided as a general advice and guide. I've already said it once. Thank you. I really hope that you got something out of today. I will hang around offside to the stage. If any of you have any questions, please come and see me. Thanks very much.
Should we tell them our favourite getaway spot?
Yeah, go on.
It's the Melbourne Caravan Camping Leisurefest for the latest and greatest of everything.
Let's get going.